Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning back in. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Layla, the Lenormand reader. And today, folks, I want to tell you a little bit about how to do a past, present, and future layout with Lenormand's cards. Past, present, and future is a very popular layout across all the cards and runes and other similar methods of divinations where we have individual cards or stones that tell us something. So there are different ways to do past, present, and future with Lenormand, either through a dedicated layout or within other layouts, and I want to tell you a little bit about them in this video. So let's head to Lenormand Reader's Table and explore the different ways we can do a past, present, and future. So past, present, and future layouts are very popular across all card reading, and even with methods like runes, really any method of divination where you have individual pieces that tell you something. So I've got a tarot deck here, and I want to start off with the idea of past, present, and future with the tarot. I'm sure those of you who read tarot, and even if you read other forms of cards and not specifically tarot, you've come across the very simple and straightforward past, present, and future layout that involves just laying out 3 cards, 1, 2, and 3. So the past, present, and future is represented by these 3 cards, with the one on the left representing the past, the card on the right representing the future, and the card in the middle representing the present. Now, the reason it works well with the tarot is because individual cards of the tarot tend to tell a story on their own. Tarot cards, first, there's plenty of them, and second, individual cards have a lot of meaning on their own. So one card is enough to give you enough indication, enough meaning for any of the phases of the past, present, and future. We can do something similar with Lenormand. We can take one card for the past, one card for the present, and one card for the future. That could work depending on how much meaning you infuse for individual cards, but I feel that with Lenormand, it really isn't all that enough. I feel that because individual cards in Lenormand get a lot more meaning from being in combination with other cards, it makes more sense to have a few more cards for each of the phases of the past, present, and future. So the way to do that with a simple line like this is to add more cards. So one approach is to have 2 cards for the past, 1 card for the present, and 2 cards for the future. And the reason this works well is because when we have an odd number of cards, we have a central card. And the central card can help us focus the reading. And you know, the present is forever moving, so it's like a transition point into the future. And so with this structure, we have 2 cards for the past and 2 cards for the future. This is more meaning than individual cards. And then, of course, we can extend that by adding 1 more card for the past and 1 more card for the future. And this way we have triplets for each of the past and future, with a single card in the middle here that is like the transition from the past into the future. Now, if you have enough cards in a simple line like this one with Lenormand, you can parse the cards differently. So you could, for example, say you're going to do 2 cards for the past, 2 cards for the future, and then 3 cards for the present. This is not common because normally we know what's going on in the present, and usually we need more insight into the past and more insight into the future. But if your situation is about getting more insight about what's going on in the present, then you might like a structure like this one. So this can potentially work, but more typically we have 3 cards for the past, 3 cards for the future, and a transition card into the present. So with a simple line like this, this is how we would read a past, present, and future with Lenormand's cards. Now I want to put these away and look at another way we can use past, present, and future with Lenormand. And that is with a 9-card portrait. Now the 9-card portrait is a very popular layout in Lenormand. It is made up of 9 cards laid out in this configuration, which is a 3x3 configuration. And the portrait, even though is made up only of 9 cards, offers a lot of details that we can read out of it to answer a query or to gain insight into a situation. We have diagonals, we have rows, we have columns, and we can also read other details like the knights, the arrows, the corner cards, the inner diamond. There's so many different structures that we can weave out of a tableau style configuration like the portrait. Now, when it comes to past, present, and future, there is a classical way of interpreting the columns as past, present, and future. Depending on the query at hand, you might like to do that with your portrait, or you might specifically make it a point to draw a portrait like this in order to read the past, present, and future. In this case, you might want to focus just on the columns, or you might also want to add details through the columns and the other diagonals. If you're going to do that, then you want to be clear from the outset what these other lines mean. And the reason I say that is because the cards that are part of the past column are also going to be part of the rows and also part of the diagonals. Similarly, the cards that are part of the present column, which is the central column, are also going to be part of these rows. So the cards from the past are into the other lines, the cards from the present as well, and the future as well. They're part of all the other lines because that's what a tableau is. The cards are read over and over as part of different lines. So if you're going to read past, present, and future through the columns, then make it clear what the other lines, the rows, and the diagonals mean to you in the context of this past, present, and future reading. So this is a really popular way of using the portrait in terms of past, present, and future. And there are other ways we can read the past, present, and future in Lenormand. And that is in a Grand Tableau. Now, the Grand Tableau is a massive spread with Lenormand. It uses all 36 cards, as you can see here. And the tableau I've got here laid out for us is called the Grand Tableau of 9s. And the reason it is called that is because we have 4 rows of 9 cards each. So that is an odd number of cards per line, and so we have a central card and therefore a central column. Now, when we look at a Grand Tableau in Lenormand, the first thing we do is locate the significators. The significators of a tableau are the man and the woman. So in our tableau here, and this is randomly drawn, we have the man in the central column, and we have the woman in the 6th column. Now, the significator represents our readee, the person we are reading for, or it could be ourselves if we are reading for ourselves. So we choose our significator based on the gender or whatever card we want. I've made a video about this. And we locate it in the tableau. So supposing our readee is a man, is our man here, then this man card represents our readee, our client in the tableau. Now, why is this important? Well, it's important to read the cards around our significator because these are the cards that affect our readee the most. Also, the lines that the significator figures in are going to be the most important lines. These are the column, the rows, and the diagonals that include the significator. These lines and the cards around the significator are going to be the most important ones. They are the cards that most strongly affect our readee. Another key thing that is used in a Grand Tableau with the significator, with locating the significator, is in fact splitting the tableau into past, present, and future. So the column where the significator figures is the present. All the columns before that are the past, and all the columns after that are future columns. So this is how we can split a Grand Tableau into past, present, and future. Sometimes the significator figures in the very last column of the tableau. So if this happens, usually the practice is to reshuffle the cards and redraw the tableau because we have only indications of the past. Now, maybe you're good with that. Maybe you want more insight into what has gone by, and that is what you're looking for in a tableau. If that's the case, then you can leave the tableau laid out when you have the significator in the last column. But if you feel that it blocks you and you're looking into the future, then you can redraw the tableau and lay the cards out again in order to get more indications about the future. So that is another way that we read past, present, and future in Lenormand in a tableau. And again, these techniques are not mandatory. You don't have to use them. They are techniques, part of a large menu of techniques that you can choose when you're reading your tableau. It just matters that you do your reading with intention and having decided beforehand how you're going to interpret the cards, whether it's a portrait or a Grand Tableau. If our significator was the woman, then this column would be the present column, and all the other columns before it to the left would be the past, and all the columns after it to the right would be the future. So in this case, we have more columns on the past than we do on the future. Again, you might want to redraw the cards if you have the significator in the last column, but in a situation like this one, you do not redraw the cards. You have enough here to read into the future. It would not be good practice to reshuffle the cards if you have like even 2 columns left. It's really only when it figures on the far right, on the last column, that we redraw the cards. Now, when we split the tableau like this into past, present, and future based on which column the significator figures in, you might wonder, well, what does that do for the rest of the lines? And this is similar to what we asked when we looked at the portraits, past, present, and future columns. And that is a totally valid question. In my opinion, or in my practice, I still read the lines as offering key insights into the reading, into the situation. But when I read the lines individually as rows like this, I don't necessarily look at this portion of the line as the past and this portion of the line as the future. When you read Lenormand with flow and with fluency, you're not going to be caught up with this kind of detail. The reason is because you're going to be able to make sense of the cards in a general way and in a way that flows. You're not going to be looking at chopping the line, into this is the past portion and this is the future portion. You're not going to be caught up with this detail. It's really more the columns that capture this past area, where you read the individual lines here and the insights you get from them. And with the rows, you'll be able to flow into a story. So don't be overly concerned about being anatomical like that. Lenormand is not like that. Although some people feel that it is when they're starting to learn. And on the course as well, in the program that I teach, students starting out, they also feel like, they need to be really pedantic about how you read the lines. It's something you might go through when you're first getting acquainted with the Lenormand way and the Lenormand approach to doing readings, but you will soon get over that. It's also very important to give yourself permission to get over that, where you're not limited by techniques or what you need to do or how it's done. You sort of go with your intuition. The cards speak to you, the different lines speak to you, and you are able to tell a story. So these roadblocks or these little challenges are normal parts of learning anything, and you'll find them in Lenormand as well. But again, like I'm saying, you read the rows, they give you good indications, key indications of what's going on in this situation, and you won't be caught up with, oh, this is the past portion and this is the future portion. So with a Grand Tableau, we have a way to read past, present, and future as well, if that is something that you want to do. Now, I want to share with you how I personally like to draw a past, present, and future layout. And that is really inspired by the portrait approach. So I lay out the past, the present, and the future, and then I lay out another card on the past, a second card for the present, and a second card for the future, and finally a third card for the past, a third card for the present, and a third card for the future. The reason I do this is because I like to focus on just the past, present, and future when I'm reading about the past, present, and future. I don't like using the portrait for it. I like to use a portrait for all of the lines and rows, and I don't like to limit myself to the columns in a portrait. So laying out the cards in this way helps me focus on just the past part, the present part, and the future part, and I do not connect the lines horizontally through what would be the rows in this case. For me, this is how I like to parse the past, present, and future. So I just focus on 3 cards for the past, 3 cards for the present, and 3 cards for the future. And that is it. That is my simple way of doing past, present, and future readings. Now, just a tip that I want to throw in here because it is useful. Some authors that I've come across have suggested the clever idea of why we use the past. The reason we use a past situation is because it gives us the timeline of the future. So how far back into the past is how far forward into the future. So suppose these cards, they give us an indication of something that happened about a month ago. We recognize them as telling us something about the past that happened a month ago. Then the cards in the future here would be approximately a month into the future. And I've recently done a tutorial on time and timing and predicting time and timing, which can be very tricky with any cards and any form of divination, even though we can sort of get an approximate or an estimated timeline from the card meanings like I suggested in that video. Well, with the past, present, and future, we have an additional technique for predicting how far into the future something can happen, and that is by getting a hint or a clue from the past card. So these are my thoughts for past, present, and future with Lenormand. I hope you've enjoyed the different techniques. By all means, tell me what you use in order to read a past, present, and future with Lenormand, or perhaps with any other card deck that you like to use. And I want you to stay tuned because I'm going to create a free resource about the past, present, and future techniques that we explored in here. That way you have it on hand when you are practicing. So I will let you know about this as soon as the resource is ready. So thank you so much for tuning into this video. Be sure to look at the links that I have for you in the description box. I offer one of the few comprehensive Lenormand master courses if you want to master the practice, and I also have the master guides and a whole lot of free resources for you to get started with. And if you like the video, then be sure to like and subscribe, and also share with your Lenormand friends so that we keep growing the Lenormand community. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'm looking forward to our next video together.